Thanks for joining us. Welcome to our May webinar, TAE Upgrades, PD, and Working Under Direction. I am Brooke Lombard, Managing Director of RTO Works and Didasco Online, and once again, I'll be your host today. I'm really starting to enjoy this job. I think it's my fifth or sixth one running. I'm joined again by Scott Templeton. He's our lead compliance consultant at RTO Works and former ASCO auditor. And today we're also joined by our guest, Dolene Bartlett. Hi, Dolene.
Lovely. Thanks for
Dolene is
having me.
the Managing Director of HBTA, a registered training organisation delivering TAE and BSB qualifications and skill sets to vet practitioners. She also delivers leadership, compliance, and auditing training for corporate clients across various industries. HBTA also delivers in-person professional development sessions contextualized to support your workforce development. So, with over a decade in the vet sector, a business background, and qualifications and skills similar to my own in training and assessment, leadership, business, and compliance, Dolene is driven by a commitment to quality, ethical practice, and a human-centered approach to how HBTA works with its team and supports its students. So, we're really happy to have Dolene with us. Thank you, Dolene, and hello, Scott.
G'day all, great to be here. Good to see you all here.
Thanks for joining us, Dolene.
Thank you, Brooke. Thanks for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
So, very warm welcome to all of our RTO Works members and our retainer clients. It's always lovely to have you with us each month, and we genuinely appreciate the support that you provide our business and the work that we do together. A big welcome to everybody else joining us today and the wider community that we've built with this monthly free webinar. So please share the link with your colleagues, workplace friends. We have a goal to reach 1,000 attendees, and I think we've made it up to 600 and something. So we're nearing that. But with your support, we can share these with more people. Today's session will run for 1 hour. Our usual format is 45 minutes of discussion with Dolene and Scott, followed by 15 minutes for questions before we wrap up. Please also feel free to pop your questions in the chat as we go. We may be able to read some of the questions out if they're relevant to certain talking points that we have. Otherwise, we will try and get to them all at the end of the webinar. You'll also receive a recording of the session and you'll get a certificate of attendance by email. I think they will be sent out by the end of this week. So if you haven't received it by next week, then please get in touch with our customer service. So there's still a lot of confusion across the sector when it comes to trainer requirements, and it is playing out in PD decisions, sometimes unnecessary TAE upgrades, and how RTOs are supporting their teams. So today we're going to be looking at answering the following questions. Do you really need to upgrade from TAE 40110 or 16? Vet PD and industry PD, what's the difference? How much do you need to do? Working under direction, expectations, and common gaps that we're seeing. Supporting SMEs to progress without dragging it out for the 2-year period that is allowed. And simple ways to bring your trainers up to currency in vet. So, Dolene, we're going to start with you. Do you really need to upgrade from the TAE 40110 or 16 to the new one?
It's a great question because it's something I get asked all the time, and there's a lot of confusion out there. And the simple answer is no, you don't need to upgrade unless you particularly want to for your own professional development. But the minimum requirement is the TAE 40110 without having the extra 2 units that were requirement in the 2015 standards, the LLN 411, Address Adult Language Literacy and Numeracy Needs, and the ASS 502, Design and Develop Assessment Tools. So the Credential policy states that the minimum requirement to be a trainer and assessor from Section 1A of the credential policy is the TAE 40110. If you hold a secondary teaching qualification, then the minimum requirement is the assessor skill set or the vet delivered to school, the vet school students teacher enhancement skill set. They made that a real mouthful. But you must remember that even if you hold the required credentials, you still need to show vet currency. So if you're taking on a trainer who has the TAE 40110, who left the sector 10 years ago because they decided that they don't want to do the upgrade, you've still got to ensure that they've got vet currency. And that's a big thing. The industry currency would be there 100%, but it's that vet currency which causes an issue from a compliance perspective. So if you are an RTO and you're engaging trainers who are wanting to work in the vet sector again after having a leave of absence due to all of the upgrades which were mandatory at the time, make sure that they are doing vet PD. Even if you take them through single units of competency, like the new core unit, the TAE PDD 401, work effectively in the vet sector, or get them to complete the TAE DS 411 use nationally recognized training products to meet vocational training needs, or even just general webinars. There's enough PD out there to bring up their vet currency.
The speed. And we've got that credential policy on screen, so you can clearly see what the new credential policy states. And so it's really a softening from the previous standards where those upgrades were necessary or you had to have those 2 additional units. I remember being part of an assessment upgrade program where I was one of the assessors, just helping a lot of trainers and assessors get those 2 units so that they would have the currency. So it really seems to be a bit of a softening now. Scott, what are you seeing on the ground as a consultant?
Yeah, Brooks. So I think out there still is a little bit of a hangover, so to speak, from the interpretation and the previous standards where that needed to upgrade once a new TAE version was released. So I've seen many trainers out there who hold the TAE 10, the 16, and the 22. Just every time a new version's released, they're rolling over. But I think this is sort of missing the point a little bit. They should be more focused on, as Dolene said, vet currency and industry currency, and just ensuring that they're, getting the appropriate PD in there to inform their practice.
Yeah, and why do you think there's so much confusion at the moment? Just because of the change in standards and it's new, just people getting used to it?
Yeah, I think perhaps because it was dialed back a little bit. So in the past, there was, you need to upgrade to the 16 and make sure you have that. And then now it's more appropriate that you have like, the vet currency and the PD currency and, meet the requirements of the credential policy, which does include the 10. So I think they're still thinking, I need to be up to date. This is how I stay current by, having the latest version of the TAE. Whereas, in the current era we're in, there's lots of really great vet and industry PD out there.
Ben, can we just bring that image up again, please? It does make sense to me. You don't require a primary school teacher or a secondary school teacher or anybody in that fact to upgrade their qualification, do you? So, I mean, once you've got your qualification, it was a strange requirement. So I'm glad to see that this has taken this path. I think that it will mean better things for the industry.
Yeah, and look, I think it was sort of like became like the sake of doing it just for doing it to tick a box, like, oh, I
Yeah,
better go and upgrade. And it sort of took a bit, I guess, of like you know, it didn't become that
quality, like
genuine,
the
you were just
quality
getting
of
the
the
qual for the sake of doing the
qualification.
qual. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So,
And
oh, sorry, Darlene, you go ahead.
sorry, Brooke, I was just going to say, I think a lot of people are scared that there's going to be an upgrade again, which becomes mandatory. So a lot of students are coming to me saying, they want to upgrade in case it becomes mandatory again with any changes that happen. I can't see them upgrading because we lost so much of the workforce with the previous upgrade
Mhm.
that it's just not viable to keep making upgrades mandatory because we do have a vet workforce shortage
Yeah, and
and
it's
we can't
expensive
risk
for
it.
people to
Yeah,
have to upgrade their qualifications
it
continuously
is.
every time they get
Yes.
one. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
Jolene, tell me about the secondary teaching qualification because obviously it's not just the Cert 4 and TAE. I have my diploma. I'm currently enrolled in a tertiary course in adult vet, which is also eligible according to the new credential policy. But tell me about the secondary teaching. So, in the past, secondary teachers used to have their TAE
Yes.
Cert 4, but now they only have to have that assessor skill set.
Yes, yes. At the minimum, the assessor skill set or the vet teacher enhancement skill set. I'm finding a lot of the schools are actually just opting for the assessor skill set because it is only 3 units compared to the 5 units.
Mhm.
The thing though, where there's a lot of talk out there where, the TAE is being diminished now because school teachers can become trainers and all of that kind of thing. At the end of the day, they still have to show vocational competency and that industry currency in whatever it is that they're teaching. So, in the past, they had to hold the full Cert 4. Now it's just the skill set, but there's still guardrails around that. It's not to say that a school teacher can go to any RTO and
Yeah.
suddenly start training and assessing. They still have to show that vocational competency within that. It's good. There's a lot of schools now who are offering vetting schools. It's becoming such a big,
Really popular.
a very, very popular, so why not let the teachers at least have that option without having to undertake the full TAE from
Yeah.
scratch?
So that
Yeah.
brings us to our next point around PD.
Mhm.
Thanks for Ben. This we can get rid of the policy now. Thank you. I see some people confused about how much PD is considered enough because obviously there's no set amount stipulated. Then we have vet PD and we have industry PD. Trainers and assessors need to make sure that they're up to date, obviously, with assessment knowledge and practice, teaching methods, training and assessment, adult learning frameworks and pedagogy, RPL methods, LLN, compliance, as well as a whole lot of other things that are, happening, neurodivergent students and also AI. There's so many things we need to be on top of. What's your take on how much PD is enough and how trainers and assessors can meet these requirements, Darlene?
Well, there isn't a specific, it's not set out in the standards or anywhere exactly how much PD is required. So it is dependent on the RTO itself. But I think realistically, we're working in education, we're working in an industry where things are changing at such a rapid rate. And I think for an RTO to stipulate that a trainer does an hour PD session for their vet PD a month, I think that's more than fair. And they've just got to allow their trainers to actually do that PD. There's a lot of talk out there where trainers feel that they don't get the opportunity to have the time to do the PD. And I think as an RTO, from a top level management point of view, you have to have continuous improvement at the forefront and education and learning at the forefront and encourage your trainers to undertake PD, vet PD. Industry currency, industry PD, there's a lot of that around there. You find, I'll use an example of a trade RTO, their industry currency is incredible. But the vet PD is always lacking, and that's what informs your practice as a
Yeah.
trainer and assessor, and the one thing that trainers need to do is when they're undertaking PDs, actually reflect on the PD which they have undertaken, not just have it as a tick box exercise. And compliance need to be involved, and team leaders, training managers need to be involved in that to monitor and make sure that trainers are undertaking PD and they're actually documenting and reflecting on it and
Yeah.
how it is informing their practice.
And that could be as
Yeah.
simple as mentioning, if you best practice as an ITO manager is to make sure that there is some paid time for that PD to happen, and then
Yes.
reflecting on that in a monthly staff meeting, the PD that
Mm.
everybody undertook, a discussion about, the best points that came out of it, document that in your meeting notes or your agenda, and then
Mhm.
on the PD registers. Scott, what are you seeing? Are you seeing a lot of
Yeah.
gaps in files that you're reviewing?
Yeah, look, just going back on what you both were saying, it's just so important that it's really built into the culture of the organization, like into the RTO. So make sure it's a process that everyone's aware of and not just like, you get the question, oh, how current does PD need to be? Is something from 2023 okay? So it needs to be a continuous process. It's not just, as Dolene said, to tick a box for the regulator, just, once or twice a year. RTOs should have schedules in place for upcoming PD opportunities and record the outcomes of what these sessions were or what the events were. When there is a meeting with trainers or staff, give a bit of summary of what took place. It's a sign of a quality trainer. and a quality RTO for who are active in the PD space and evolving with industry. And Brooke, you mentioned before, it's such a rapidly evolving space. You want to be on top of it, and you want to be, best practice, because as it always comes back to student outcomes,
Mm,
you want to make sure you're on the forefront there. You're ready. You've got, policies in place, that might deal with, the student support needs, neurodivergency, even in the AI space. We spoke about that a lot last month. So just build it into the culture of the organization where it just becomes a part of everyday business, and, it's just constantly moving and evolving, not just oh, we've got an audit activity. Let's quickly, watch a few webinars or like go on YouTube. Just make it become of everyday business.
and it should be something that people look forward to. Like
Yeah.
learning is fun. Somehow along the line, some people have made it boring, like death by PowerPoint. Nobody wants
Mm,
a PD that's death by PowerPoint. Let's listen to
mm,
a podcast about how to better manage ADHD in the classroom.
yes.
Let's, there are YouTube videos, there are podcasts, there are webinars, conversations like we're having, where
Mm,
you can actually get ideas, and you're throwing those ideas around, and that's really a growth mindset. If
mm,
as compliance managers and leaders in our organizations, we are having a growth mindset and we're wanting to continuously strive and grow and make things better for our students and make things better for our staff, then that culture can be really catchy, and PD can actually be something that people look forward to learning, rather than you know being bored to death, or just not even watching the webinar, having it
Yeah.
on background, ticking the box, getting the certificate, adding it to the PD log. That's
Yeah.
not
And Brooke, we're in an era where there's so much great PD out there as well, and free as well. So there's so much stuff available on YouTube, or, just
Yeah,
different,
there's great
blogs you can be a
podcasts
part
out there as
of. There's
well.
everything, webinars, podcasts, yeah, you name
Mm.
it. So there's so many great activities out there, and it's just a real era for it at the moment. There's just so much you
Yeah.
can really be doing in
mm.
that space.
Compliance managers can even run in-house PD. I mean, they can get the team
Absolutely.
together and
Sure.
run through
Yeah.
sessions.
With you saying that, Brooke, there's an RTO that I know what they did was when the new standards came out, each month they focused on a different area of the standards.
Yeah,
And that
that's
was the
good.
PD which they offered to their staff.
Yeah.
We're in an era, we work in education. We're there to guide and direct and take people through, you know, their next career steps.
Mhm.
It's in our best interest and in the RTO's best interest to have that mindset and that culture of learning.
Mhm.
Learning never stops. Every day you are learning something new, and embrace it instead of trying to fight it. Find the things that you find interesting and do PD on that.
Mhm.
Make yourself a better trainer.
Yeah. Naz
Yeah.
has a question. Is in-house PD mandatory? Well, Naz, PD is mandatory, but whether that's in-house, external, how you access that, that's not stipulated in the standards. So as long as PD is happening, and once again, different RTOs have different policies. Some, want their trainers to do PD on their own time and on their own dime, and some offer it as part of paid hours. So all goes to the culture of the RTO.
Yeah.
Um,
And Brooke, sorry, just on that point, it's not just trainers and assessors that need PD now. It's staff members, admin, anybody working in the RTO. You have to show that they are undertaking professional development as well. And it's always been a focus on trainers and assessors, but it's now for the entire organization. So I think it's important that compliance managers actually start thinking, what can our admin team do? What can our back end marketing, all of that kind of stuff do professional development wise to improve their practices?
Yeah. So Mohammed has asked how many industry PD recommended in a year. Once again, it's up to what you
Mm,
decide with your policy. Dolene personally recommends one a month. Could be
mm,
one industry, one vet, alternate.
mm.
That's not a requirement. It could be four a year. It could be two per term. It could be whatever you feel is going to work for your team, whatever you've sat down and thought about, and whatever is, going to ensure that your trainers are current. So once again, in vet, there's a lot of grey to interpret. So yes, I'm sorry, Mohammed, I can't answer your question with a definitive answer. But yeah, you can come and talk to us if you'd like us to set up a PD schedule and register for you afterwards. So we're going to talk about working under direction now. There has been quite a bit of confusion about this with some of the people I've spoken to. I think the confusion has come about because it hasn't been very clear in the standards of what suitably qualified means. So it talks about that the person working under direction needs to be the supervisor must be suitably qualified. Now, some people that I have spoken to have interpreted that as they need to have their industry qualifications or competencies and their trainer and assessor credentials. And some have interpreted that to mean they have to have their TAE credentials, but not necessarily the industry competencies or qualifications, because sort of together they make a whole. For example, a mechanic or a chef has come from industry and they are being supervised on the training and assessment aspect of it, but they know their industry stuff. They might have their Cert 3 hospitality, um, and they are sort of taking the option, well, can we just use a trainer and assessor from, a different area to supervise them on the training and assessment? Now, I understand best practices, trainer and assessor qualified, industry qualified. However, I think that this has come about. There's many ways to interpret something, and suitably qualified hasn't actually been stipulated. So I did actually catch up with Melanie Cox, the Director of Regulatory Policy and Standard at ASQA, when she and I were both at a conference. And I actually spoke to her about this, saying, I'm trying to find some wording where we can actually clearly and definitively show that the trainer has to have their industry and their TAE. And she said, absolutely, that is the case. And ASQA would be updating their website or their FAQs to show that. I think that's really important because sometimes there's room for interpretation, but in other times there's not. And someone says ASQA spoke about this recently as a session. There is a reluctance to specify an amount as industry. Oh, no, sorry, that's about PD. Okay. I thought you were talking, Ellen, about what ASQA mentioned about their supervisors. So, yeah, that's been unclear. Just to confirm, Darlene, you interpret it the same way as I do. Industry current, TAE current, and working under direction. That is a matter of fact, not non-negotiable.
Yeah, absolutely, Brooke. My interpretation is that 100% the supervisor needs to hold the full TAE qualification as well as the relevant industry qualification or industry experience. So even if they've just mapped, have a trainer matrix, how they have mapped their industry currency and experience to that particular unit of competency. But you cannot have somebody who does not know the industry supervising a new trainer who is working under direction. It's illogical. It makes no sense. Common sense has to prevail. And with any legislation or anything that comes out, look at it from a common sense point of view. How does it realistically look?
Yeah. And it's also unsafe.
It is unsafe. Very unsafe, particularly in certain high-risk industries. It's like me going and being having somebody work under supervision with me doing a trade, a boilermaker or elevated work platform. And because I've got the TAE, I'm allowing them to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. We have to be realistic.
I think there was some wording in some of the old companion guides that talked about assessment teams. You can't have an assessment team. You're a trainer and assessor. You're qualified to train and assess industry and your training credentials. I think though that it's important to, mention that on this webinar because it would be a massive non-compliance if you are having a supervisor that doesn't have those competencies mapped or that qualification.
Yeah, that's right. And at the end of the day, sorry to cut you off there, but at the end of the day, it's the supervisor is the one who's making the assessment judgment. So they're determining if the candidate is competent. So if they don't have the industry knowledge, they can't do that appropriately. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think RTOs are interpreting, you can use a subject matter expert as somebody who can actually deliver training and assessment, and they can't. Your subject matter experts there just to support and come in as that subject matter expert. They're not there to train the person or assess the person. That is for the qualified trainer and assessor to do.
So do you think what happened is a whole lot of people left the industry once, they a few years back when they made everybody like upgrade, and now we have a shortage of trainers and assessors, and now the policies, are being sort of relaxed a little bit so that we can actually have people from industry come in to become trainers and assessors. But what this really kind of means, and it's good for industry, is that it's like a mentoring arrangement, and it's kind of like a workplace qualification if you do get someone from industry and put them through their TAE, because they're learning from you, they're learning from your organization. They're learning over a period of 1 to 2 years. They're not just going off and doing, as a 6 month or, TAE course, or doing it online on their own. They're actually getting their theory, doing their course, and then having that mentor in the workplace. It's really helping them to build their skills and become a really good trainer assessor. So is it popular, Dolene? Are you seeing popularity?
Absolutely. So we're finding a lot of RTOs are engaging subject matter experts and enrolling them into the TAE straight away. The great thing with this is that mentoring arrangement, first and foremost. And that's what I always try and reiterate with all new TAE students as they enter the sector. You are the mentor. You are the one with that industry experience and knowledge, and you are passing on your knowledge to the next person. And that comes with a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility. And I think you need to appreciate that fact as a trainer and assessor. So what's happening now is the RTOs, particularly in trade RTOs, because as we know, there is that vet shortage, the vet workforce shortage. So they're finding the SMEs, they engaging them as trainers working under direction, and then enrolling them into the Cert 4. Now, what we do, our RTO, obviously all TAE RTOs are different, but we take them through the assessor skill set first, because a lot of these trainers are actually working with apprentices. So we take them through the assessor skill set first. That way they're working with a qualified trainer and assessor in that specific industry, and they are getting that mentoring and that mentorship as they undertake the TAE. Then
Yeah.
from there, they go through the rest. And where it works really well in situations like this, and I really encourage all RTOs to think about doing it this way, is your TAE, it's almost like a work-based learning program or a traineeship, or whichever kind of wording you want to put around it. But it helps because that new TAE trainer, well, that new trainer and assessor who's coming in, they're getting the mentoring, the support of the industry, they're understanding how things are done, and they can align what they're learning in the TAE to applying it within their daily role. So
Yeah.
the TAE, we all have our TAE in this room. I'm sure every single person has it. We all know how challenging it is, particularly when you don't have support, when you're doing it by yourself.
Well,
But doing it
yeah.
this way, it just ticks so many boxes from a best practice point of
Yeah,
view,
it really
and bringing
does.
about trainers and assessors who actually have that competency at the end of it, because they're actually working in the industry that they're going to be utilizing their skills as a trainer and assessor in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they've got that 2 year supervised period,
Yes.
although probably best practice is to try and get them through in a year.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely a year. We always recommend try and do a unit per month. The TAE, it is quite a cumbersome qualification to undertake, and the minute I find students get lost if they walk away from doing their assessments for a few weeks or a few months, and then they try and get back into it. It's very difficult. Keep plugging away. The RTO who's taken on that new trainer working under direction, they need to allow them time to do their assessments during working hours as well. If you're
Yeah.
going to overload them with the work during the day and then ask them to do their assessments at
Yeah.
night or on
Probably
weekends
not
in their own time,
possible.
it's very difficult. And it's really important that you have a proper plan in place, a structure in place to,
Yeah.
you can't just leave them. You can't just go, okay, well, you're now in enrolled in the
and then
Cert
we
4.
can
We're
do it.
compliant as a TAE,
Yeah,
I mean, as an
we can do
RTO,
it.
so
Yeah.
go for it. Yeah, it can't be like that. It needs structure. It needs a proper plan.
Yeah. Scott,
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
you seeing? Are you seeing that
Yeah.
those plans are in place or there's a
Well, I'm glad that Jolene mentioned the plan because this is often overlooked. It's quite common to see that someone's working under supervision and there is no plan or there's no monitoring and nothing's been reviewed. But this is something that, it really needs to be put in place. So there needs to be a plan put in place. There really should be a process or some sort of procedure. So, it's followed appropriately. And Ben, we actually have a process that we actually have created. And this details, if you could share that, we'll put that up. There we go. And this basically just outlines, the reasoning behind this, everything that needs to take place step by step, and why we do it. And basically, this will provide information on what is put in the plan, how much maybe supervision would be front loaded as they are starting off at the beginning, and then as they progress through the qualification, perhaps less supervision is required. But to get to this point, also, it needs to be reviewed, and also they need to be monitored. So it's a very important part of this whole process to actually monitor the supervised trainer and ensure that they are actually learning themselves and they're actually doing their role appropriately. So this
yeah, if
procedure
you
which
can
we
just
have
scroll
here.
down.
Yeah. So this is actually also linked to a separate document that we have, which is the working under supervision plan, which really sets out all the various parts of information, including what units are being delivered, and what dates they are, and the level of supervision required.
You can
And then,
stack it, hey Scott, like you'd have a
yeah,
supervision at the beginning, and then as they move
yep,
some of their units, then they're less supervised, et cetera, et cetera. And
yeah,
then you also
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
units finished. Darlene, I think you said a lot of people are doing the assessor skill set first and then
Yes.
moving on to other
And
units.
then moving on. So the way we do it, with the TAE, the way it's set out with the stackable skill sets at the moment, it's really helpful because we can issue them with the TAE SS19 assessor skill set once they've completed those 3 units. And then they continue on working through the remainder of the qualification. And as you say, Brooke, the supervisory side of things, you can start giving, it's much like scaffolding with all students,
Yeah.
we scaffold as we teach them.
Mm.
But they can also start bringing in workplace evidence, which is really good because they're
Mm.
then relating their assessments to what they're doing in the workplace.
Yes, and
And,
they've
and
got
it's
all
just
that
such
in
a
the
synergy.
workplace. Yeah. So if they're
Yes.
doing a specific
Yeah.
unit on, I don't know, like it's on delivery, they can actually apply what they've learned and document
Yes.
that, use that as their evidence.
Absolutely. And
And
that's the great
you
thing
can
because when
have
they're designing session plans, sorry, Brooke, when they're designing session plans and they've got to do their delivery sessions, they know what they're doing. They've been there,
Yeah.
they've been working in it, so they understand the whole process. It's not foreign to them. So it
yeah,
just makes things flow so much
yeah.
better.
Ben,
Ben,
can you quickly just put up the a shot of the plan as
yeah,
well, so we can just have a little quick look at that and just what sort of details that would include,
so
if
if,
if that's
if you
available.
are if you are training under direction or you're interested in having TAE or employees under supervision, and you don't want to create the policies and procedures, we do have those packs available on the website. We'll get Milo or Ben to add in the chat where those are available. So yeah, if you don't have to create one from scratch, if you don't want to, and if you did want to purchase, we are having a sale. I think someone's popped some details of that in the chat for us. So
Yeah,
you've got your
fantastic.
plan there.
Yeah, and so without having those things in place, there really is no mechanism to monitor progression. So that's not really robust enough for the process to be done properly, and it really is poor practice. So, paramount to have a process in place, have the plan worked out, sit down with the supervised trainer, and then also review it, monitor it, and yeah, that's how it would be done best.
Yeah, because like you say, your job is not done when, you've enrolled them in their TAE. You want to make
Yeah.
sure they finish their TAE, they contribute to your workforce and that they're a
Yeah.
really good trainer assessor as well. So
Yeah,
definitely make
absolutely.
sure that that documentation's in place, and you will need it during your performance assessment as well.
Yeah, cool,
Our school will
cool.
be
Yeah.
looking to see these types of things.
Yeah. Thanks for
Um,
that, Ben.
yeah. So, Dolene, what are your top suggestions for RTOs to support trainers to make sure that they are current with their vet knowledge and practices?
I think have a PD plan in place for all of your trainers. Don't leave it up to your trainers. Support them, give them ideas, give them thoughts, even have a theme on what you want them to cover if you're not scheduling the PD for them. The really important thing, Brooke, and I saw a comment was done earlier, watching a YouTube video or reading an article isn't enough PD. It is actually, it is enough if you're reflecting, if you're documenting how reading that article or how watching that YouTube video is going to improve your practice. It's all about reflection. So it's not saying, oh, I watched a YouTube video on whatever on this date. That's not PD. 100% it's not evidence of PD. But if you have, so the RTO, what they should do is they should have a template. And I'm not sure if you have one, Brooke,
We
with
do. We have
RTO
on
work.
our website. If we could pop the link
Yes.
there, I think it's the trainer and assessor pack. It's got PD logs and
Oh,
evidence
sure, yeah.
and
And it's
everything.
really just that self-reflection, and everything we do is about self-reflection because it's about continuous improvement. We
Yeah.
cannot be effective trainers and assessors or educators working in the vet sector without continuous improvement and
Yeah.
reflecting on what went well, what didn't went well, what can I take from that
How
to
can I
my own
improve?
practice to improve. So
100%.
that's what I suggest. Have that proper plan in place. Have your trainers reflect and document it. Keep, as you say, you have to have what's not written down doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
encourage that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Scott,
Yeah.
what are the sort of biggest gaps you're seeing as a consultant, and
So,
what
yeah.
areas should RTOs be especially mindful of?
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back as well, just it needs to be, continuous and promoted by the RTO. So just make it the actual culture. So it's happening, it's continuous, it's always moving. We're discussing it, it's embedded in, the meetings, it's just embedded into the actual business of this is what we do. So, so many times in the past I've heard trainers or, RTA say like, oh, how current does it need to be? I mentioned that earlier, is 2023 current enough? That's not ideal practice. That's just ticking the box for the regulator, and it defeats the whole purpose of actually doing it because you want to be delivering quality, you want to be, delivering appropriate, up-to-date stuff. So when your students they go out there in the workforce, they're employable. At the end of the day, that's
Yes.
what it all comes back to, So they want to be, have the current vet knowledge. They want to have, I mean, they want to have the current industry knowledge. You want the trainers to have current vet knowledge. So it's got to be ongoing and it's got to be relevant. There's no point, trainers sitting through PD sessions if they're completely irrelevant to the cohort that they're delivering to. And it's going to be irrelevant if it's not related to the industry that they're working in. So going through HR files and trainer files, you often just see a whole suite of PD that's just there to tick a box. It's not even relevant to the cohort that they're delivering to. It's not really, relevant to what they're actually delivering. So if
Mm.
you're going to be going and doing it, make sure it's relevant, make sure it's going to add to the quality of your organization and the way that you deliver. And the best way about doing that is just embedding it into your organization. So follow up on PD. So if you do PD, that's fantastic, that's great. Don't just gatekeep it and keep it to yourself and say, yeah, cool, I'm up to date, I'm all sweet. Bring it to the meeting. So discuss it. So, make it part of everyday business. Discuss it with other trainers. Chat with them. Talk to other people in the organization. So your student support staff, anyone who's relevant. And you can discuss how it could improve training, how it could, maybe you could start improving the way in which you do things, processes. Record it, document it, as Dolene said, so just all of those things make it just part of the organization, part of the business, continuously moving forward. And it's not there just to say, yep, that's cool, I'm done for the
Yes.
year.
for sure.
Yeah.
Just keep
Mm.
evolving.
But
Like as we said, we're in an era where PD is so abundant. It's everywhere and
yeah,
it's
and
great. So just get involved. Yeah.
put the excitement
Mm.
back into it,
Yep.
Yes.
forget the box ticking. Like, and really,
Mm.
I think it can be exciting to think about your cohort, who you're teaching, and what might be relevant for you. You might be working with culturally and linguistically diverse people, and then you might need to really educate yourself on how to use Google Translate better, how to
Yep.
use
Mm.
different apps better.
Mm.
That's examples of great PD you could do.
Yeah.
If you're working in secondary schools, then in schools, there's so many new like behavioral management techniques and new conditions that pop up all the time that we need to educate ourselves on. Oppositional defiance disorder. You've got different, ways of understanding now. There's so many students with ADHD. There's so much more research now.
Mhm.
I went to a conference the other day and there was a really great PD on how to train people with a technical mind. And that was
Okay.
amazing because, people with technical minds don't often like doing PD and they don't want to stand in a circle, hold hands, and do icebreakers. That terrifies a
Mhm.
person with a technical mind. So if you're training a bunch of engineers, or technically minded industries, how can you make your training more effective for someone who thinks technically and not in an artistic way? So yeah, there's so many great PDs that you
Yeah,
can do.
it's brilliant because I, for one, cringe at icebreakers. Oh man.
Yeah,
And even though I'm a
I love
TAE
them,
trainer,
and
oh
that's
God,
it's personality
don't make
based.
me do an icebreaker.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you say to an
Yeah.
introvert or a technically minded person, say something about yourself, and
Yes.
they're instantly not engaged in your training.
Mm, for
Um,
sure.
so
Yes.
so that was a fantastic PD that I did with that was Trevor,
Mm,
who I'll try and find the link to his consultancy and send it forward. But yeah, so much amazing stuff out there. And when we really go back to why we're in this industry for really good student outcomes, because education is amazing and education changes people's lives, then
it does.
it stops becoming a box ticking exercise. So we need to get back there. And yeah,
We
hopefully
do.
we'll
And
be
you know,
able.
Brooke, on that thought, there's nothing more rewarding and self-gratifying than having a student thank you and go, do you know what, that I have learned so much and the process was amazing. And I'm so confident
Yeah,
in moving forward with the next step in my career. It is
yeah,
incredibly self-gratifying, and
yeah,
it's amazing that we have that impact on people's lives. And we need to appreciate that and actually give it the value that it deserves. And
yeah,
by giving it that value, we will have that growth mindset and that mindset of wanting to be the best version of ourselves that we can be.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just reading through some of the comments here, there's some really great stuff. So,
Yeah, well, it's time now for
oh,
questions.
okay, yeah, I'm
No,
jumping the gun.
yeah, we're at the 45-minute mark. So what we'll do, excuse me, guys, what we'll do is we'll open the floor. Scott, do you want to pick out a couple of
Yeah,
them?
I just want to read
Or-
out one of the comments, which I thought was really great, and that was from Debbie
Yeah.
Lippert. So Debbie said, PD is not one size fits all. It differs for each person and organization. And that's absolutely right.
100%.
And that just comes down to, how relevant is it for you? Like, is it, to do with the cohort that you're delivering, or if you're delivering to a specific cohort, what do you need to know? Like what, how best will you be able to navigate the delivery for this? So yeah,
And
that's absolutely right. It's not one size fits
And that
all.
comes back to what I'm not sure how I pronounce your name, Ilanen, so I apologize if that's not right. But she said, ASCA spoke about this recently at a session. They are reluctant to specify an amount as industry for PD. The needs are different and evolve at different rates, and that's 100%. We need to get away from this prescriptive environment and prescriptive culture, and we need to let the common sense approach and the reasonable person test come into play here. What is reasonable? It might be different in every industry because it might be extremely complex or technical. Legislation may change
Yes.
more like quickly. So to specify it would be a negative thing in my belief. Um, TAE, okay, someone made a comment and said, do you require or should we require here, is there any ASCL requirement or guidance that states trainers must be given extra time for assessment or more entitled to additional time apart from the teaching hours? That there's no, once again, no prescription there. It's about your organization and doing the best thing for your organization and your people. If your RTO and your organization puts people first, then they should be providing opportunity and encouraging and helping to source that PD, not leaving you alone to just go and do it on your own because that's really not effective and it's not best practice and it's not best practice for the RTO either. The RTO, you know, should really be assisting and helping. And I understand it depends. You've got people who are casuals, you've got trainers and assessors who are employed, but it's anything that improves a person improves your organization. So the organization is benefiting at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Michelle has written, this is why the credential policy must be read in conjunction with the outcome standards legislative instrument. Yep, absolutely right. So it's not all just about like, let's just, read the credential policy. It's often, interpreted and defined through other supporting documentation and legislation.
Yeah.
So, read it in conjunction with all the information that's out there and also published by ASCA on their website.
Yeah, Debbie said as part of our position descriptions, very clear then as a team for PD calendar. Exactly. So as compliance managers and RTO managers or higher up, it really is your responsibility to make sure those position descriptions do state that PD is a requirement. Provide, calendars and appointments for that to happen. Um, Before we go, if they're in, well, we've still got some time. I wanted to talk about industry because some people were saying, like, if you work as an assessor full time or trainer assessor full time, how do you get time to work in industry? You don't actually need to work in industry if you're a trainer and assessor full time. You need to be current in industry, but you don't necessarily need to have two jobs. So, Scott, what are you seeing there and how people are, because I mean, if you're
Yeah.
working as a full-time trainer and assessor teaching hospitality, you don't have time to go and do chef night shifts.
Yeah,
That's
no, that's right. Yeah.
and
Well,
not
like,
expected.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So, a lot of trainers out there are a trainer and assessor, which is their full-time job, which, more than enough a full-time job. So you're not going to be actually working. So if you're not doing that, then it would be expected that you do keep up to date with the latest trends, and so forth. Say if you're in a hairdressing trainer and assessor, what events are you attending? So what sort of like things are you doing to ensure that you're up with like latest trends? What products are available?
Yeah,
Because you want to be
products and things as
once
well.
your students out there, in industry going for a job, do they know the best techniques for, dyeing hair and, all of this? So, whilst you're not expected to be working, keep up to date with what's going on in your industry and make sure you're like, fingers on the pulse.
Yeah, maybe an
Sure.
industry
Yeah.
conference every year. Every industry
Yeah.
has a
Yeah. So
roadshow.
like even with machinery, there's a
Mm.
massive machinery expo each year, for your graders and all of that. Attend something like that. If you're working full-time delivering qualification or your RII units of competency, go and attend that show because that brings up you're seeing new machinery, new capabilities, and that helps your industry currency to
Yeah.
develop. Yeah.
Fatima asks, what about the industry evidence? What's the time frame that needs to be recorded to be considered current? I say, Fatima, best practice is that you should be doing some industry PD every 12 months. That's not stated anywhere, but that's what I recommend because, at least every year you've attended, something or even an online workshop where, because AI is different last year than it was this year. It can do way more things. So if you take that as an example, if you did some industry PD on AI, this year, in 3 years' time, that's out of date. So, Scott, would you agree 12 months is probably a safe bet?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. But as well, I just think when an opportunity comes up, go for it. Don't always just, hold out and say, this needs to be quantified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Just
Sally asks, oh, sorry,
Oh
Scott.
yeah, no, yeah. We must be reading the same one because
Yeah.
we,
Sally
Sally,
asks,
how much reflection should we be writing for each PD session?
write
So
an essay. Maybe an
Yeah,
op-
that's
No, not
right.
an essay.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be Moby Dick, like just a bit of a summary about what
paragraph.
was discussed. Yeah, and what the benefits were and what the key takeaways were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe how you're going to apply it. Like, oh, this was so great. I learned how to manage this type of behavior that I've been seeing lately in my workshops, and I'm going to try XYZ at the next workshop to
Mm,
see if that
mm,
improves things.
yeah.
Yep. Paddy Hocking
So,
is in-house PD run by trainers considered as vet PD. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, can be.
yeah.
Just depends like on the content, but yeah, it absolutely can be done in-house.
Yeah, you might have a more experienced trainer who
Yep.
is particularly good at doing something that you want them to pass that on to the other trainers. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that so we have spoken about industry PD. Does anybody else have a question that we haven't answered? Um, Wanted to ask about in-house generated PD for train assessors. I like the idea of PD tailored specifically to company policies.
Mm,
That's a really good one.
yes.
Go through the
Mm,
standards, and a lot of people create policies or have policies, pop them in a SharePoint, and then that's where they live. And not many people know about them or trained on them. If you've got an intranet, have them on the intranet, do a PD every month on what is this policy, why is it there, how do I use it, something like that.
yes,
Because your policies are
absolutely.
tied to the revised standards, and it's been a year now, essentially almost a year since the standards have come into effect. So, yeah, maybe a refresher on how everybody's
Mhm.
going with that.
Yeah. Anthony, 1 month
Good
now
one.
for AI. That's quite a funny comment. By the
What
time you get your
did
certificate,
he
it's superseded.
For
say?
sure. Absolutely.
Very, very true.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
So yeah, have that schedule. If you're a compliance manager, assist your trainers and assessors to really have that schedule set
Mm,
up 12 months in advance. Have your policies in place, make sure everybody is attending, or
Yeah.
have it online. And I think face to face is still great. I think that
mm,
COVID, a lot of people shifted things online, and
mm,
I understand there's a cost saving measure with moving
mhm.
things online.
Yeah,
But I don't,
absolutely.
I don't think it's helped people like stay connected and
Yes.
really get the benefit of training like a face-to-face session.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. Also, as well, just want to mention there was a question asked, will we get a copy of this session? So after this is complete, it's going to be uploaded onto YouTube. So we have a YouTube channel, and so it will be available there. So whilst you won't get the certificate for attendance,
Mhm.
you will be able to watch it, or any staff in your organization that you think would benefit from watching it. And it also could be documented as PD, or if you want to
Yeah.
listen to it at night to help you fall asleep, as well. It could be highly beneficial.
Document your findings from this PD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make sure
And
you reflect.
And you
Yes.
will get a certificate as well that you
Mm.
can log. And Tanaz says, thanks for the input on industry currency. As many RTOs management feel that even as a full-time trainer and assessor, you must work in the industry and are very pedantic about it. So thanks for your input because I totally agree with you. I mean, I just think it's unreasonable to
It
expect that
is.
someone's working as a full-time trainer assessor and but perhaps you could one day a term, do an industry day. So there's a school that I'm working with, and when their students are out on work placement, because they do vet in schools, they get a day where they can actually, go into their industry that they're in, one of the workplaces that offer that, and do some, refreshing of skills or something like that. There's many ways to accommodate that industry piece, but really asking somebody to work a part-time second job, I think that's
Yes.
totally unreasonable.
It is. And, there's so much knowledge that we can gain without having to be working in that particular industry.
Yeah,
We just have to be creative and find those opportunities.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. You will get a certificate if you attended live. There will be a recording made available on our website where recordings live in our webinar section. Um, we do have an end of financial year sale. It is till the end of June. If you are a member, and you already get your 10 or 15% discount, the 15% discount is on top of that. So you could save up to 30% if you're a member and you want to purchase something. Thank you, Dolene, for attending. It was really great to
Thank you.
have you
Yep,
and to
amazing.
discuss
Thanks.
some really important issues. Thanks, Scott. As always, we're missing Sally. Sally, if you're watching this, we hope to see you back on our next webinar soon. And yeah, as always, please share this webinar with everybody. Let them know about our free webinar every month. Yeah, send it to your colleagues, share it with your friends, and thank you so much. We'll see you next month.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot,
Brooke. Thanks for
everyone.
having
Great to
me.
see you all
Cheers.
again.
See you,
Thanks.
everyone.